wasn't entirely thrilled with what I did with episode 154. I left some bits out that I should have covered. So rather than just do an add-on, I decided I'd recut the video. So this video is all about getting images into your library. Let's go. Hi, and welcome to episode 161 of Understanding Darktable. If you've just installed Darktable for the first time and everything's new, understand that there are two ways of getting images into your catalog. I'll use the term catalog because I'm guessing a lot of new Darktable users are trying to escape the subscription hell that Adobe has landed you in. So from the import dialog in the top left-hand corner of the light table view, we've got add to library and copy and import. Those are two separate ways of getting images into your library. I will get to the differences between those options in just a sec. But before that, I want you to come over here to this cog. You can use the keyboard shortcut Control, and that will bring up the Darktable preferences. And if you go to the Import tab, there are 4 fields that we can enter information into. Now, given that I am relaunching this channel and I'm covering everything all over again, we're just going to go on a very quick side quest for 30 seconds. If there is one thing, and there are many, that I love about Darktable, it is these little white dots. Those white dots signify that this field has been changed from its default value. I love that. I wish more software developers did that. So I can go through all of these tabs in my preferences, and wherever I see a white dot, I know that that's a setting that I've customized that is different from what the default value was at the time the software was imported. Great feature. I love that. Anyway, base filmrolls directory. Well, before we answer that, we've got to say, well, what's a film roll? In Darktable parlance, a film roll is created anytime you initiate an add to library or a copy and import function. Yeah, I'll come back to that when we get to those two buttons. But think of a film roll as anytime you import some images, that import process, whether it's 1 image or 1,000 images, it doesn't matter. It's a film roll. Okay, so the base film rolls directory is essentially Darktable's way of asking you, where's the folder into which you want all your images added? By default, this points to the My Pictures folder. Depending on your operating system, it might be named Pictures or My Pictures or whatever. But essentially that's saying, where's your default library going to live? For me, I've got a mount point, a hard drive which I've called My Photos, and then I've got a parent folder on that hard drive called Photos. And then if you were to look at my directory structure, inside the Photos folder, I have multiple folders for different types of shoots. So I have a commercial work folder, I have a family photos folder, I have a test shots folder for when I'm just doing test stuff that I don't need to keep, and a few other variations as well. Film roll name. This is where you can set how you want the film roll to be named. And here's another little side quest for you. If you search Darktable variables, you'll end up on this page. And all of these variables can be used in a multitude of places within Darktable, usually within naming fields or export fields. So you can use any of these text strings to create file names or metadata based on other metadata from your image. Trap for young players. You will see that there is a year, month, and day variable, but there are also EXIF year, EXIF month, and EXIF day variables. Don't get tripped up by this. If you use year, month, and day, that will be the year, the month, and the day that you are importing the images. So if you've come back from holidays and you use year, month, day, the photos aren't going to end up in the day folder that you actually took them, because that might have been a couple of weeks ago while you were on holidays. Right? This is a common thing for me. I go on holidays, I shoot lots of photos, and I come home and then I import all of my images. And that's why I use EXIF year, EXIF month, and EXIF day, because that looks up the year, month, and day information for each specific image from its EXIF metadata. We then have the option to keep the original file name. Now that's unchecked by default because it then gives you a file naming pattern. I actually prefer to keep the camera generated file name. There we go. Those are the 4 options that I wanted you to look at before we get into importing or adding images to our library. The first thing we're going to do is look at this parameters drop-down panel. The first option, ignore EXIF rating. If there are star ratings or color labels in the EXIF metadata, you can choose to ignore that by ticking that box. Initial rating defaults to a value of 1, meaning everything you import is going to get assigned a rating of 1 star by default. I actually prefer to set that to 0. Apply metadata. This is unchecked by default, but if you check that box, you will then have a drop-down list here with a bunch of Creative Commons presets, and they have different fields pre-populated according to whichever preset you've gone with. Sadly, you as a user are unable to add your own metadata preset, which I find a little bit of an oversight on the part of the developers. I'm not sure why you would have all this functionality and then not be able to save your own preset, but is what it is. You can add titles. Bit pointless to do on a bulk import because it would mean every image would get the same title. Same with description. Creator, you might want to put that value in there as your name or your website. Same with publisher. Rights, that's up to you. Notes, version name, preserved file name, yada yada. Use them as you see fit. Then down here we've got tag presets. Now, let's say you've gone out and shot a wedding. You might decide to add wedding as a tag to all of the images you're about to import, so that in the future, if you're looking for images where you shot weddings, you could just search on that keyword and you would find every wedding image you've ever shot. And you can add as many tags there as you like using commas as a delimiter. So you might want to put the location, let's say it was Sydney, something like that. So every image you're about to import is going to get the tag Sydney and the tag wedding added to it. Okay, so now we're ready to add some images to our library. You use this option when you already have a folder on your file system that has photos in it and you neither wish to move them or copy them to any other location. You simply want Darktable to reference that folder where it lives with the photos that are in it and just leave it alone. So in the top left corner, we've got places. Depending on your file system, you'll see things like home and your pictures folder, and you can add other default locations with the plus key and you can remove them with the minus key. And you can restore any default places that you might have removed. So I've added my hard drive called My Photos as a place. And then in the folders section down below, we can see the folder structure of whatever place it is that we are currently looking at. So we can see my drive, My Photos, the parent folder called Photos, and within that, all of the various folders that I have for different types of photo shoots that I've done. Now, those have already been imported. However, if I go back to 2008, there is some stuff here that I've not yet imported. So I will just click on this folder here, because I know I've not imported that one yet. If I go to a folder that has been imported, all of the images will have a check mark here on the left-hand side. If we go to this one, all of these are highlighted because of this option here, select only new images. So they've all been selected because Darktable has not yet seen them. Recursive directory says if there are folders within this folder that I'm pointing at, look in those child folders for images as well. And then if you shoot RAW and JPEG and decide that you only want to import your RAW files and ignore your JPEGs, you can choose to ignore non-RAW images, and Darktable will not import anything that's not a RAW file. I will leave that checked because I want it to import everything. And so I can now click on Add to Library at the bottom. And that will create a new film roll, because remember, this was an import job that I initiated. And if we go to Collections, which defaults to looking at film rolls by default, right at the top, 2008-02-24 bushwalk with 12 images. And there's my 12 images. Now you might be thinking, why don't you just point to the 2008 folder and let it scan the whole year? And you would be absolutely correct. I can do that. So we go back to Add to Library, click on 2008. We can then see those first 3 folders whose images have already been imported, and all the images which have not been imported are highlighted in light grey. You'll see a modified date, so just the date that they were modified in the case of JPEGs, or if it's the case of RAW files, it's probably the date they were created, because technically you can't modify a RAW file. And you'll also notice that there is this little eye icon over on the right hand side. If you check that, Darktable will create thumbnails for every image before you import. So if you know that there are images on the memory card or in the folder that you don't want to import, you could then deselect those images before you added them to your library. So I'm happy for this to go ahead, so I'll click on Add to Library, and there are 1,360 images that Darktable is now adding to my collection. And that's all the images that I shot back in 2008. So we can see that that has now finished. Those images have now been added to my library. And if we go to the Collections module, we can now see that there is a film roll for each folder that was imported. This option will read any metadata from any existing XMP sidecar files that are sitting alongside the images that you're adding to your library. Now, if you are a Lightroom user who is trying to get away from Adobe hell, there is an option that you should check in Lightroom before you move to Darktable. Now, admittedly, I've not fired up Adobe Lightroom since 2016, so I'm assuming that the same behavior still exists. Back then, the last time I used it, Adobe did not turn on this option by default, and the option is create XMP sidecar files for my images. Now, that's an option in Lightroom preferences that, like I said, back in 2016, it was unchecked by default. I'll assume that is still the default behavior. What you want to do as a Lightroom user is find that preference, turn it on so that XMP files are created. Then before you go to bed one night, just select every image in your catalog and press Control S or Command S if you're on a Mac. And that will then force your system to create an XMP sidecar file for every photo in your catalog. Now, what is an XMP sidecar file, I hear you ask? It's a glorified text file that sits alongside your images and contains all of the information about the star rating, the color labels, all the keywords you've added, and to a certain extent, the processing steps that you had initiated on that image. Now, I've heard lots of users go, oh, what are all these XMP files clogging up my file system? I don't want them. They look ugly. Seriously, guys, grow to love your XMP files. Just a little side note, personal story. Back in the days when I was using Lightroom, I had a Lightroom catalog file become corrupt. And yes, more fool me, I did not have automatic backups, running on my Lightroom system at the time. So I lost all the metadata, all the keywords and tags for every image that I had. At the time, that was about 10,000 images. And I was not happy about that at all. So when I started using Darktable and realized that Darktable doesn't work that way, it creates these XMP sidecar files and puts all the information into the sidecar files alongside each image. The beauty of that is that if Darktable was to crash, and I've got to say, I've not seen it crash very many times, maybe half a dozen times in the 9 years that I've been using it so far. At most, you'll lose the metadata for the one image you were working on at the time that it crashed. There's no way your library can become corrupt because all of the keywords and the star ratings and the color labels and everything else are in those XMP files. It's fantastic. Like I said, learn to embrace the XMP files. They are your friend. So that is adding images to your library where they already exist in a folder on your file system. You don't want to move them. You don't want to copy them. You just want Darktable to become aware of those images where they currently live. The other option is copy and import. And this option you use when you want to copy images from some location into your parent photo folder. So this is what you would do when you've got a memory card. You've taken it out of your camera, stuck it in a card reader, mounted it to your system, and now you want to copy those images off the memory card into your photo folder, wherever that might be on your system. Because obviously you don't want to reference the images on the memory card because the memory card isn't always going to be mounted on your system, right? So you wouldn't use add to library. You use copy and import, and you copy them to somewhere on your file system. Now, the first time you invoke this button after you install Darktable, you will get this little message here. Import base directory. Before copying images to the Darktable base directory, make sure it is defined as you prefer. Further information can be found in the Darktable manual. Well, if you've been watching this video from the beginning, you know we've already done that. And once you've done that, you can click on Understood and Done, and this message will not pop up again. If you click on Come Back and Check, this message will pop up the next time you invoke copy and import. I will click on Understood and Done, and now we've got the copy and import window, which for the most part is the same as the Add to Library window. The difference is, down the bottom here we have Import Job, no underscore name, and we have the naming rules which can be expanded. And this is where you can override those default values that we set up in the Darktable preferences on the Import tab. The first option is override today's date. I will confess I'm not actually sure how you use that field. I've never had to use it. Base filmrolls directory will naturally pick up whatever you defined as the base filmroll directory in the preferences and in the Import tab. But you see, I don't want to import directly to that folder. I want to choose one of the subfolders underneath the photos parent folder. So I click on the little browse icon, pick a folder. I'll go with test shots for now. Click on open. So now this import that I'm about to do will import into my test shots folder. Again, the film roll name is exif year, and then a / because I want it as a folder, and then exif year hyphen exif month hyphen exif day. There's also an option to keep this window open. That's handy if you want to do a couple of different import routines from adjacent folders on the same memory card. You can't select multiple folders over here on the left hand side. You can only choose one folder at a time. I now need to invoke this copy and import. They're going to go to my test shots folder, so it doesn't matter what I do. So I'll just go with the 1900 to 1959, which is some old archive photos from my family, and copy and import. And those images are now being copied from the location they were in, which admittedly in this case is a folder on my hard drive. But the same thing would occur if you had mounted a memory card in a card reader to your system. So these images here are now duplicated on my system because I've got them in the original folder in family photos, and I now have these versions which appear in the test shots folder. And if I was to go to the image information panel here, we would see under full path, if I mouse over that and wait for it to pop up, we can see photos test shots 2016, 14th of January of 2016. The original files remain untouched because, let's face it, if you're importing raw files off a memory card, you can't modify a raw file anyway. But more importantly, this copy and import process does not read or copy any existing XMP sidecar files. Now, if you are if you are copying and importing from a memory card from your camera, there won't be any XMP sidecar files. If you are copying from some other folder on your system, like I've just done, any existing metadata or tags or, well, those XMP files, they do not get copied across to the new location. So these images that I've just imported, they have new XMP files that live in the new location, and they have not inherited any of the keywords, the star ratings, the color labels, or anything like that from the versions of these photos which existed in the original location. So just be aware of that. Add to library will read existing XMP files. Copy and import will not. Okay, so much for my intention to try and keep these videos shorter. There really just was so much to cover in this particular topic, and I didn't want to break it up into multiple videos. So that is it. That's getting images into your installation of Darktable through either the add to library or copy and import functions. All right, just a quick bit of housekeeping. The reason for the lengthy delay in this video coming out was a combination of the fact that Kath and I have just been on a 2-week road trip to Tasmania. Got a lot of nice images that I'm really stoked with and just had a great time. All right, questions, comments, sing out down below. I'll catch you in the next one.